this is on. Are these on?
Are these on? They're on. Well, welcome everybody, and we are so delighted to have you here in Montclair, Misty. It's just, your journey has been an amazing one, an inspiration to all those little ones out there, as well as the older ones. But we want to start out by asking you, first of all, what inspired you to write a memoir so young?
Well, thank you so much again for having me. I know we had to reschedule, and then I was stuck in traffic. I was like, I think this event is cursed, but I made it here. So thank you so much for having me and Charisse here tonight. It definitely was not my idea to write the memoir. I thought that was something that happened once my career was over and I was older and looking back on my career. And Simon & Schuster came to me, my editor, Megan Reed, with the idea, and she said, no, it doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all, to your life and career. This could just be one part that you're sharing of your story. So I thought, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about writing a memoir. And then having Charisse come on board, it really came together quickly.
Now, how did you two come together? Was it a collaboration of a long time, or what?
No, I had interviewed Misty at an Apple store on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and we'd had this great conversation and this great connection. And I knew her manager, Gilda Squire, who's wonderful. Woohoo! Amazing. And a few months later, after we'd met, they called me and said Misty had gotten a book deal and she needed a co-writer, and would I be interested in doing it? And I jumped at the chance, obviously, because I so admired Misty's story, her triumphs over a lot of adversity. And I had written a book previously that dealt with black women and how we deal with racism and sexism and lowered expectations. And I felt in a weird way that Misty's story was kind of an extension of that, because she had to deal with so much of that in the ballet world, kind of overcoming the idea that we don't do ballet. So I felt it was a chance to kind of put a personal spin on something that I had told in a broader way in a previous book, and that's how it was born.
Well, what was the process like working with a collaborator and telling your life story to someone else? How did that feel?
I felt really comfortable with Charisse. Again, we knew each other already, so that was kind of a nice head start.
But you didn't know each other a long time, did you?
Right, no. But it was a little bit different than just kind of feeling like you're sharing your story with someone you're meeting for the first time. And Charisse would come to my apartment and sit with me, so it was very comforting. I had just had surgery on my shin and was recovering, so she would come over and we would just kind of hang out and chat, and she happened to be typing sometimes or recording, but it just felt very easy. I also kept a lot of journals from the age of probably 15 or 16 until,
which she now has.
I shared a lot with her from my journals, so it was nice to be able to revisit and really get my voice from those periods in my life.
Well, for those of you who don't know, this is the book, but it is so beautifully written, and you feel so much a part of Misty's life as you're going through the book. How did you get that kind of connection? What was it? Her life, of course, we understand now is very inspiring, but how did you do that?
It's interesting, as a journalist, I'm used to interviewing people and telling their stories. But when you're doing a memoir, it's very different. It's very personal. You almost have to channel that person's psyche and their emotions and their voice. And Misty was so amazingly brave and candid in telling her story. And I also think we had a lot of points of connection. You know what I mean? We're both from California, and we moved to New York as young women. So, you know, I saw New York a certain way as being kind of electric and crazy, and I would kind of write that and say, did you feel the same way? And she'd say, yeah, and then, you know, we kind of keep that in, and, you know, I just think, you know, we're both very shy as children and had to kind of outgrow that. So we had a lot of things in common, and I think that that really helped in making the narrative unfold.
Well, it's a beautiful story. Now, you mentioned a moment ago about recovering from an injury. What was that? What happened?
Yeah, it's the opener to my book, pretty much, how that came about. It was during a period in my career that really got me to this point as the performer that I am, and being given the opportunities that I've been given in performing certain incredible classical roles. I was given the opportunity to learn the part of Firebird. I don't, how many years ago was that now? I guess 3 years ago, yeah. Okay. It seems like forever ago now. And it's not often that a soloist with a company like American Ballet Theatre at 29 years old, after being a soloist for over 5 years, gets their first opportunity to do a leading classical role, the lead in a classical ballet. So when I was given that opportunity, I felt like this is my chance to prove that I'm capable of carrying an entire company on my shoulders and being a principal dancer. I felt like it was kind of my last chance, because that's pretty late in the game at 29 to be given your first opportunity. So I dove into it just with everything that I had in me, and just didn't give myself enough time to recuperate. And I ended up performing the role 3 times, twice in California and once in New York City at the Metropolitan Opera House, before I pulled out and discovered I had 6 stress fractures in my tibia, and 3 of them were dreaded black line fractures, so they're almost full breaks through the bone. And I had a plate screwed in, and it's still in there, but it took me about a year to recover. And it was during that time that we wrote the book.
Well, my next question was going to be, can you speak to some of the challenges you've overcome? But that's clearly a major challenge.
Yeah, that, you know, it's so, I think it's a lot for people to hear that maybe aren't familiar with professional athletes or with professional dancers, but it's very common. I'm not the first person to ever have, you know, a big injury and a surgery, but it's very common in our profession. I'd probably say that definitely helped to get me to this point in terms of how I view every single moment that I'm on the stage, and I just have a different appreciation for what I do after going through something like that at such a late age again. I know it probably doesn't sound late to some of you guys, 29, but that's old for ballerina, and I'm 32 now, so I'm still pushing it. Just, you know, to go through something like that, that's older.
Well, how did you keep from giving up? You know, what motivated you to keep on keeping on despite physical challenges, and we'll speak of the other challenges you've had over your lifetime, but what in you kept going?
I think that it was very therapeutic to be writing the book at that point. It helped me to really, again, just appreciate how much work I'd put into this career. Hearing those words that Charisse created, this is for the little brown girls, that runs throughout the book, that's what kept me going. All the little brown girls, all of the young dancers out there that were looking for me, that I felt like I had started to create a different path for dancers that maybe didn't feel they had the right body type, the right upbringing, weren't the right color, and so it was like, I have to keep going.
Well, what advice would you give to some of the young brown girls, even just the young girls going into the world of ballet? It's difficult.
It's so extremely difficult, and if you aren't 100% committed to it and passionate and in love with it, it's not worth it. You have to sacrifice so much to be a part of it, and you spend more time sweating and bleeding and in rehearsal than you do on stage in the limelight. 90% of the time is spent training, and it's difficult to put yourself in a position where you're giving all of yourself and you're being criticized. But it's a choice that we make as performers.
But we were specifically talking about the ballet. But I understand that you recently, I think, performed with the Martha Graham Company?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So you are a modern dancer as well as a ballerina. I love that.
I love a challenge. And when they approached me, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I'd love to try and do this. And I mean, again, I dove into it. I showed up bare feet because I figured it's Martha Graham and dance with bare feet. And I did the entire rehearsal process that way, and I was so sore and trying so hard. And it was, I think, the day before the show, and I put on the costume in the studio, and they said, you've been wearing bare feet this whole time, but you're in ballet slippers for it.
No.
I thought that was hilarious.
So you actually wore ballet slippers for a modern...
And I rehearsed the whole time with my bare feet.
Now, what about contractions? You learned the Martha Graham contraction.
I got pretty good at it, I think.
Now the key is to put that on point.
It was an incredible experience and opportunity, and I think that every dancer should explore more than just the genre that they're a part of. It makes you better at what you do.
Well, not only did you do Martha Graham Company, but in your book you talk about performing with Prince.
I was there. I saw that.
That experience brought about so much, which is why I decided to work with Prince. I know most people would be like, come on. That wasn't a hard decision, but it really was something that I thought about. I knew that at that point, I was still at a point in my career where I felt very alone, and I wanted so much to have a voice and to share ballet with more than just the people that come to the ballet and that I'm surrounded by, that look like the people I'm surrounded by. So when Prince called me and presented the opportunity to be in this music video,
Prince called you.
I thought this is an incredible opportunity to reach so many people that might not be exposed to ballet, might not be interested in ballet, and to know that Charisse was there. My manager, Gilda Squire, learned about me because of the Prince concert, and all of this has happened because of working with her. And to this day, I still meet people that say, oh yeah, I come to the ballet all the time, I'm a huge fan of yours, and that's because I saw you dance at Madison Square Garden with Prince. It's like, well, that's why I did that. And it was, yeah.
Well, now they're the people that say, oh, that's the one that dances on the Under Armour commercial. So you're all over the place. You have single-handedly put ballet on the map at this point, really, without question.
Well, my face, but my teams, they're the ones who help put ballet on the map.
Well, we have our teams, but you know what? You're the face of the team, and you do it so well.
Thank you.
I know that you have talked at length about your mentor, and I think Raven Wilkinson was someone that you really, really love,
yes,
and who inspired you. Can you speak about her a bit and a little bit about her career and how it influenced you?
Yeah, again, I didn't know a lot about my history in terms of being an African American in the ballet world. It wasn't something that was ever really talked about when I was training. My race was not ever brought up to me. I was a prodigy. I was extremely gifted. I came from a background that wasn't, so ordinary for the ballet world. And So being black was not really something that I thought about until I became a professional. And I just felt very alone, and I felt like there has to be other people out there like me who've been through this, who are going through this right now. So I saw the film Ballet Russe, and that's when I heard about Raven Wilkinson for the first time. And she came onto the screen and she shared her experiences of dancing with them in the 1950s and touring through the South for a lot of the time that she was with them. And she experienced a lot of racism, and she was pretty much chased out of the company by the KKK and ended up moving to Europe and dancing. And just hearing this, it was like, I think I've got it bad. Like, this is insane. But at the same time, it was like not that much has changed. I mean, I'm not being chased out by the KKK, but I think a lot of the ballet world is still the same. And my manager, Gilda, she researched her and found out that she was still alive and she lived around the corner from me. And we ended up doing a conversation at the Studio Museum in Harlem, and that's where we met for the first time. And it was just speaking about two different generations of African-American ballerinas. But she's just been an incredible person in my life that's become like a grandmother to me, and someone who can just relate to me in a way that the typical person can't. It's like a ballet dance language that we share. And my children's book, Firebird, was written and loosely based around our relationship, and it's dedicated to her. So.
It's beautiful. Well, she was your mentor, but I understand that now you have a project where you're mentoring young people. Tell us about that.
Well, I started mentoring young dancers a while ago, over 5 years ago, I think. It just slowly happened where I feel like these young dancers just kind of were drawn to me, and they had so many questions, and they wanted to hear my experiences and advice. And so I just started slowly taking them under my wing, and but it's a little bit separate from what Project Plie is, which is a diversity initiative.
Yes. Isn't that with the
with the American
ABT?
Ballet
Yeah.
Theater and with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, since that's where I took my first ballet class, and I'm an alum, and I'm the ambassador for the Youth of the Year program with them. So they were so incredible to come on board with ABT and help create this diversity initiative.
So tell us more about what actually is done for the children at ABT, or is it nationwide? How does it work?
It's in collaboration again with the Boys and Girls Clubs, so it's giving opportunities to different communities that might not have the exposure or the funds to be able to afford top-notch ballet training, to get them the same equal opportunities once they get to a level where they can then audition for companies as the dancers that are a part of the dance world, the ballet world now. It's getting teachers in the Boys and Girls Clubs and partnered companies and schools in different communities that want to be a part of Project Plie. They're getting trained in the JKO, the ABT training curriculum, so that they are teaching all of these communities.
Is this nationwide?
Nationwide, so they're teaching them the same training that the dancers at ABT's school in New York City are getting.
And was this initiated by you?
It's with Rachel Moore, the CEO of American Ballet Theater. She came, it was her baby and her idea, and she came to me, and I just have lended my experiences and the Boys and Girls Club and kind of helped bring it all together.
Now, you started with the Boys and Girls Club at 13.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, that was kind of the base that grew from with the idea of Project Plie, was that we wanted to kind of shape it around how I got started. So that you shouldn't have to stumble into a basketball court at 13 years old and then shove 4 years of training, and then to get to a professional level. Like, that's just not normal, that someone can actually make it in those circumstances. So we wanted to give them an opportunity coming from a similar background as me, to be able to go to their club and take ballet classes for, at affordable prices. But I was a member of the Boys and Girls Club with my 5 other siblings, and my single mother was working many jobs, and that's where we would go after school while she was working. I decided at maybe 12 and a half to audition for the dance team at my middle school, and they made me captain. And I had no dance training, and I just thought, okay, this is fun. They made me captain. Woo! Let's just keep doing it. And that's when my coach on the dance team said, I think you have more potential than dancing on this drill team. I think you should go take a ballet class. And I thought, ballet? I didn't know anything about it. So I literally was pushed into taking this class, like pushed onto the basketball court in my gym clothes and my socks. And that's where I took my first ballet class.
It's amazing. It really is. And now you're the face of ballet. It's truly an amazing story, but you mentioned 5 siblings. What was it like growing up with 5 siblings? And as your book states so beautifully, Charisse, you describe it, you feel like you're in the room. But apparently you and your 5 siblings and your mom lived in one room in a motel.
Yeah, we had a tumultuous upbringing. My mother married several times, and there were times when we were living in beautiful neighborhoods and great communities, and then there were times when we were, sleeping on couches with friends and in bad areas. And by the time I started dancing, we were living in a motel. All of us kids sleeping on the floor, and it was the hardest time for my mom, just financially, without a job and trying to raise us all. I don't know, I think it was fate that I started ballet then. I feel like it kind of saved me from going even further into myself. I internalized everything, and I was very quiet and insecure and didn't have a voice, didn't know what I wanted, and I feel like I was really underdeveloped for the age that I was. And I really feel that ballet kind of brought me out of that, gave me a career, gave me a voice, made me into the woman that I am today.
Well, I was speaking with Charisse earlier, and she said both of you were kind of shy, and you shared that. You don't seem shy anymore.
And Misty really talks in the book about finding her voice and that whole journey towards kind of getting the courage to talk about what she wanted out of ballet and how she felt. And she also talked about how no matter how shy she was, from a very early age, she felt at home on the stage, with her first talent show, when she, dancing to Mr. Postman, with her sister, and you felt great up there. And she's just very courageous, I think, in talking about the pain and the struggle to get to where she is, not just as a dancer, but as a woman.
Well, when you're talking about the pain and the struggle, did you ever dance? Because you describe it so beautifully. I assumed that you were also a dancer.
I saw Black Swan. But that was about it. I didn't know a plie from a hole in the wall. And I think that's what made our collaboration so great, is because I think Misty's story is so universal, it should really reach a broader audience than dance students and dance professionals. And so I felt that we kind of wrote the dance portions of the book for me, for someone who knew nothing about ballet. And Misty was very patient with me, describing the steps and the technique and evoking the experience, the stiff point shoes and the body heat, making the windows fog up. I mean, just beautifully told me these things, and I was able to kind of put it in a vernacular that I think anybody would understand. So that's how that.
Well, it really painted a very clear picture. Some of us, I think some of us in the audience have been through that experience. When you're in a dance studio, it's nothing but sweat. And most of them are not air-conditioned,
No.
or at least the air conditioning has broken. But aside from that, I do want to ask a couple of questions that came from students who wanted to know how many classes a week did you take when you started at age 13?
Oh, I was taking 2 to 3 a day, 6 days a week.
2 to 3 a day.
Yeah, I mean,
6 days a week. That's how you get here.
I was taking beginner ballet classes with like 6-year-olds. I was taking intermediate, and then I was really just thrown into these advanced classes, and my teacher, I think she really enjoyed watching to see how much I could take in at a time. I mean, I was completely overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing, and I literally would just mimic and follow the people in front of me, and that's how I learned.
Well, you know, I read the book, obviously, but you went on point in about, 3 months after starting taking ballet?
Yeah,
That's
that's
unheard
not
of.
safe. Don't try that at home for most people. But my teacher was very aware of my strength and worked with me very closely. It's in our genes, the Copeland genes, and we have very strong bodies and legs, and you know all of us Copelands from behind because of our calves. So I was definitely capable of being, I was strong enough to be on point at that moment.
Well, are any of your other siblings dancers?
No.
Oh.
Athletes, they've all played sports. My mother danced. She did everything, but no one else, no.
That's very sweet. Another question that came from a student, which I think is just quite charming. Do you or did you ever get stage fright?
That is. It depends. I feel like the older I get, the more aware I am of what I'm doing. When I was younger, it was just, you don't really understand all the people that are out there, and you also you can't grasp that everyone they have different opinions about what they see. Not everyone's going to see things in the same way. And I think the older that I've gotten, the more aware I am of all of those things. But it's very rare that I snap out of this trance that I'm in when I'm on stage. It's very rare that happens, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. Like,
Well,
I
you
usually
feel at home on stage.
yeah, but I usually
imagine.
you have to have such an imagination, and you have to be able to take yourself to that place and create this environment when you're up there that you truly believe you are the character that you are, and you're in that place that you want to create that atmosphere. And I think that if you kind of remove yourself from that, that's when it becomes scary.
So you're speaking the language of dance.
Yeah.
And as long as you're speaking that, you're a happy camper.
Yeah.
Well, I want to change the subject a little bit. In bringing all of the racism, if you will, the lacking of diversity out in the book, have you gotten any kind of pushback from ABT or any other colleagues?
No, absolutely not. ABT has been incredibly supportive, and I think it's taken them a while, but they understand what I'm saying and what I stand for, and that it's positive, and that ABT is everything to me, and they've been my dream company. They still are my dream company, and I want people who don't know about ballet to know who ABT is, what classical ballet is, and just to bring it to more people, invite more people in. So I think they understand that messaging, and who wouldn't like that, I think.
That's true.
And definitely not from my colleagues, but I do get some pushback from the ballet community, not to my face, but just things I read, and I think that it's the younger and the newer generation that understands what it is I'm doing and how things need to change. And I think that it's hard for people that have been a part of the ballet world, and that it's so ingrained in them that this is the way things should be, nothing should change. It's a little bit harder for them, I think, to understand.
Do you see it changing?
Yes.
And what about the concept of the the perfect ballet body, and how do African American young women fit into that picture of the perfect ballet body?
Again, I think it's opening up the conversation. I think that the perfect ballet body has evolved, what we consider to be the ballet body has evolved so much. And even just looking around, the girls next to me at ABT, everyone has such different bodies. They're more athletic than anything, than, these rail-thin bodies. And that, changes and grows with the type of choreography that we're doing. But I think for me, where African Americans fit into that ballet body, I think it's more opening up this conversation of racism in ballet and how people kind of hide the meaning behind saying you don't have the right body. And I think a lot of the time that is you don't have the right skin color. Because, it's a strange thing to say that every black person has the same body type. I mean, that's just not true. And it's the same for every race. We come in all different shapes and sizes.
For sure. Charisse, having written the other book that you wrote and comparing that to Misty's story, what do you take away from this in terms of what's happening in the ballet world or what should happen in the ballet world?
I mean, I think that there's a struggle throughout society to accept the diversity that our culture is. And I think that Misty's story is one of so many of kind of breaking down barriers and introducing new audiences to an art form. I was at BAM, I guess 2 or 3 months ago when she was in the Nutcracker. And that audience had to be 50 to 60% African American. And I know the year before, it didn't look like that. And I think that that's just part of the process. And I think the audience can bring about change as much as the people on the stage. They can kind of demand to see faces and bodies that look like theirs. So I think her struggle is really universal, and I think it's important that we share our stories so that we know that we're not alone in facing these types of biases, and that's how change happens. And that's what was so great about her sharing her story.
Well, it's a beautiful story, it's an inspirational story, it's a motivating story. I'm going to take class tomorrow. Oh no, darn. It's a holiday. But where do you see yourself, let's say in the next 10, 20 years? Do you see yourself as a choreographer, as the director of a company? What do you see for your future?
No. I know that I'm meant to be a part of the ballet world, and that will never, ever end for as long as I live. I don't see myself teaching or opening. I mean, I say all of this now. You never know. I never saw myself writing a book or doing all of these other things. But I want to dance for as long as I can and look good. I want to have...
You do.
I want to have a family and, live a normal life, but I will forever be talking about diversity in ballet and giving back in some way and just a part of the ballet world.
Well, you're a glorious part of it.
Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, because some of my teenage students, I'm sure, are wondering, do you have a boyfriend?
I do.
Do we want to share any more?
Sure.
Tell us about him.
I don't know if I've ever been asked that.
He's in the book.
Yeah, he is
Yes,
in the book.
well, I wasn't sure whether that was still the same one.
Same one.
Oh, no, yes.
Oh, Lou.
Yes, it's the same one.
Oh, he's very, very... I suggest you buy the book and you can see the pictures in the center.
He's not a dancer, but he's wonderful and supportive and loves ballet now.
And that's what's important. Now, obviously you had a great impact on him. We are so delighted to have you here in Montclair, to have this audience see you up close and personal. And I know that they have, I think, purchased books that you've agreed to sign. And if I can direct the audience, I think the audience members with books to be signed by Misty, and perhaps even Charisse,
Yes, Charisse as well.
can begin to line up there.
Thank you so much.
You're going to stay down here?